Hi, friends. Happy GML Day. Sarah and I got really, really lucky and fortunate, and we were invited to a private meeting with Google where they went over some of the stuff that we will be presented with GML today. So we want to talk about that and get everyone prepared for what we can expect for the rest of the day. Some of the stuff is still secret to us, so we will be doing a follow-up video with our thoughts and our reactions, and we're going to have special guests for that. So Google Ads Pro Jill Saskingales will be joining us, and then evangelist at Optimizer Nava Hopkins is also going to be joining us, and I think it's going to be a really great episode. I'm very, very, very excited for it. Sarah and I are the PPC gals. This is our podcast, obviously. I'm Ameet Khabra. Next to me is Sarah Stemen. We've been in Google Ads 30 plus years together now. I'm a Google Ads expert, but I also own and operate an agency called Hopskip Media, and Sarah is the owner-operator of Sarah Stemen Training, where she does audits for businesses so they can do better with their ads. And yeah, that's basically it on my end.
That was like an awesome intro. I don't know if I can follow that. So the only difference that I had of the intro, and so I'll just add my little flavor, is they really stress the secrecy of this. Like, we now are not necessarily embargo pros, but we're not new to the embargo way that Google handles things. And it was absolutely stressed to the point of we will track you down and know which individual did it. So I have not told my husband, I have not told PPC, like I haven't even had a personal conversation about this.
Neither have I.
And they said it at the beginning and the end. So again, we're super lucky. So whatever you hear today, we're going to be high level, and then I like that concept of the reactions later. So
I think the reactions will be so much more fun because then at least we have everybody who's gotten to like digest it a little bit more. I have a hunch that Google will be sharing more information while we're there. I think it's just a better, from my standpoint, I feel like the next bit of the content or the next video for GML is going to be significantly better. But obviously, we want to help everybody prepare for what to expect. And yeah, that's the purpose of this one.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. So, I mean, I would say the biggest thing, and I'm not even going to use the words that they use, but we are going to be hearing a lot, drumroll, AI.
The dirty little word. Hey, AI. Yeah, that's gonna. I feel like that's not gonna be shocking to anybody. We're gonna hear that at I/O. We're gonna hear that at every conference for the rest of tomorrow, at the very least. Like it's gonna be a lot. We're gonna hear that a lot. But I think the key stats that they brought out were kind of really, really fascinating for me. So Google revealed that there's 5 trillion searches happening worldwide in any given year, and that they're also continually seeing growth in searches within the platform, which I think is really, really cool. But the thing that really caught my attention was when they started talking about age demographics.
Yes.
So they've stated that Gen Z, so 18 to 24-year-olds, are increasingly issuing more queries each day through Google than any other age group. And for quite some time, we've been talking about how TikTok and Instagram have turned into search engines, which they have for sure. But now we're starting to see that shift of that age group that was predominantly using social platforms for search queries moving back into Google, which I think is really kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wrote that down too. I also wrote down the 5 trillion searches throughout the entire year. And it sounded like that, by the way, isn't that age group, that's worldwide, all demographics, how many search queries are going on. So, I mean, obviously, this is a platform that knows all of humanity's deep and dirty secrets.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. I would love to get into the back end of Google and just be like, let's find out what they're actually thinking. But that's my own personal thing that I just love figuring out about people. Another thing that they mentioned was Google Lens, used for over 25 billion searches each month currently, and it hasn't been even fully rolled out everywhere, which I think is really, really, really interesting. So you basically get to search what you see. I'm a plant lover. Absolutely and utterly love looking at flowers and that kind of stuff. So like having glasses that could actually just tell me what I'm looking at would be really freaking cool. I don't know if I'll ever make that transition quite yet, but it's still something that's really kind of nifty. One thing that they have noticed is that most of the searches are incremental, but a quarter, so 25% of them, are commercial intent questions. So that might be a really great advertising avenue that they might, actually not even they might, they likely will explore eventually at some point.
Yeah. So actually, I guess kind of to tie this back in, before our debrief, we, kind of wanted to do some late predictions. And I talked
Mhm.
specifically that I'm a heavy user of Google Lens. I know you mentioned the plants, but for me, I have a pond in the back of my
Mm.
yard and we'll see ducks and be like, what kind of duck is this? But not just the exploratory. I actually use it commercially, and I gave a long use case on Jill's podcast, right? Where I talked about how when I'm shopping for a very specific silhouette for my daughter's dance costumes, I will find a silhouette that I like and use that to search. And I feel like it goes deeper than
Mhm.
just the searches that we see. But to your exact point, when you think about incremental versus commercial usage, that really, you have to be SEOing those images. And if you look at the Google Lens results, they're still not very paid search. They're not very capitalized on. I think a lot of it is organic types of stuff. So it's very, very interesting to me that they brought up these statistics.
Yeah, and I think this is like a really great area for if you're an SEO or if you're doing both paid and SEO, this is a really great opportunity to kind of really look into what else you can do to possibly end up on the search results for the lens side of things, which I
Yeah.
think is going to be really cool. They've also introduced Circle to search. So that's currently available on 250 million Android devices. Users who try Circle to search start using it for 10% of their searches right now. Naturally, that will continue to increase because, everything else does.
So I'm actually nodding because I don't know what circle to search is, and I missed that entire piece.
It's kind of like a Siri basically at this point. Like you're just
Oh,
asking it questions. I think
okay.
they're just changing up the names at this point and not really giving us a lot of guidance on that one. But that's how I took it. So if I'm incorrect, please let me know. Anybody.
So you have an Android though, and I have
I
an
do.
iPad.
Yeah,
So
I've like for me, I just don't, I have an older version of the Android, so I haven't upgraded quite yet. So I'm thinking that this is for the newer devices, but I'm not 100% sure quite yet. I'll have
okay.
to double check and verify when we do the next video, I guess.
No, that makes sense. And you and I have already mentioned, because this one's out of embargo, they've already put this on the news, but the channel performance reporting, we're
Hmm.
definitely going to get more deets around things like this, and then lots and lots of YouTube.
Yeah, so I want to go back to the channel reporting because there was something interesting that they actually changed. So in our last video, when we talked about channel reporting, we had talked about how the data is not going to be retroactive. We're not going to be able to go backwards. That is actually now incorrect. So Google actually confirmed in that private call that the data actually will go back to sometime in November 24 or November of 2024. They had set a specific date. I just didn't get the date. So November 2024 is when we'll be able to look back, but further than that, we won't be able to.
Okay, yeah, I heard that in the call. Is that a secret? Do I need to edit this?
No, because embargo will be lifted by the time we publish.
Good
Yeah,
feeling.
we'll be okay.
I may be chopping this a little route.
And then yeah, so YouTube shoppable features is the next little bit. So they've got shoppable CTV experiences coming through where you'll be able to obviously watch the ads and then you can pull out your phone and scan a QR code and continue your experience on the mobile device, which we've been seeing a little bit of in recent months, months. I would say months for
Here,
me.
yeah. So I'm gonna wait for my hot takes to talk about this.
Fair enough.
Desperately, like I have things on the tip of my tongue.
I
I
know
want to
it's so
say.
hard not to give our commentary. No, but the purpose of this video is just telling everybody what the announcements are. So the
Yeah.
next one is shoppable mastheads on mobile, which I think will be kind of really nifty and cool. And this will obviously allow direct shopping from YouTube, or they're going to be allowing direct shopping from YouTube ads as well, which I also think will be pretty interesting to see. Obviously, AI Max is going to be officially announced
Right.
at. We don't really need to go into that too much. We've already done that in the last video, expanding on keyword reach and targeting and stuff like that. So we'll see how that pans out. The one that I'm going to have a lot to say about, and I feel like you will too, is the smart bidding exploration. So that is new from my understanding. So it's AI powered bidding feature to strategically target previously out of reach searches. So this will not alter your targeting in any way, shape, or form. And that was made abundantly clear during that call because we asked one too many questions about it. What it does do in like the most simplistic form of saying it is more aggressive bidding for your current targeting as is. So if they notice that you're bidding for, let's say, black sundresses or something, and they see a search query that you would normally bid for, but you're going to lose out on because your bid's not high enough, they'll actually aggressively go ahead and try to go for it if they think that it might actually become a conversion. The one thing you do have to note is that if you're using it for with a target ROAS bidding strategy, you are, well, actually, no, I think it is for target ROAS. Actually, don't quote me on that. But if you're using it with a target ROAS bidding strategy, you're going to have to actually give it a little bit more flexibility. So my ongoing recommendation, I feel like a lot of other people say the same thing too, but when you implement target ROAS, I usually like to give it a 10 to 20% flexibility in terms of like what the ROAS target's going to be. So if my target is 100, then I might go at 85, right? So that way Google has a little bit of flexibility to kind of figure out where people are coming in from and stuff like that. Or sorry, smart bidding exploration is going to require you to do that once more. So you're going to have, what is it? It's 10 to 30% basically. So you get to make that determination whether you want to stay at 10 or you want to give up about 30%. So that way you can explore even further. But yeah, that's basically it. It's basically just to increase the variety of traffic that comes through.
That's interesting. And again, this will be one to your exact point that I'll save my commentary because I interpreted what you just said totally differently.
I kind of had a feeling when we were talking about it yesterday, I was like, I think I need to actually have this conversation with her in person. Because I'm like, I feel like
you
we heard
XYZ and I XYZ felt differently. And so I think it's going to be a really interesting thing, and like it or not, what I tend to do with anything Google is I tend to draw comparisons with what I know has worked, because I think you said it earlier in this call, we see things and I'm like, that's a name change. Like that is a functionality, and that is existed, but it just, we do that a little bit differently. So, I think that our commentary on a lot of these things, and I'm also probably way more paranoid about you, even though I'm thinking about the time of this, that I'm not sharing too much. So, there is that.
We're just trying to be careful so we don't get removed from Google's PR list that we've worked far
100%.
too hard to get onto.
100%, which is why I didn't say search exploration. I was afraid to even say a technical word like that.
That's fair.
Okay, so then kind of to rewind so we talked, I started down the path of YouTube. The other thing that we heard about, and I find this one to be really, really fascinating, would be just the ability to manage and look at brand traffic incrementality. I find that extremely interesting because I know brands care about this, and I used to have a workaround to measure it. Now, when I told Jill that, she wanted to know, and then she said, oh, well, we should wait for you to tell me that. So maybe that'll be another teaser here. But that being said, I was clapping my hands. I was like putting the hearts up when they talked about this.
Yeah, so it's attributed brand searches tracking from your YouTube to Google. So obviously we already know that the halo effect exists. We've talked about it ad nauseum for freaking years at this point. And now we're going to finally be able to kind of see it. So there's going to be some bits and pieces to it. I wrote some notes on this. So essentially what happens is that the way that it's been explained to us is that somebody sees your ad on YouTube, they go into Google, and obviously they go ahead and do that branded search, right? Now we're going to be able to we're going to have a window. Right now it's 7 days. But the aim is to do 1 to 30 days, and that'll happen as they continue to just roll out the feature and stuff like that. But you'll also be able to do a brand map. So what that means is that you're going to be able to tell Google what searches they should be tracking that are related to your brand. So it's not going to only just be like, let's say for me, it's not only going to be Hop Skip Media. It might actually be AdWords Girl, PPC Gals, podcasts, LinkedIn. I don't know. I'm just making up random words at this point. But let's say I wanted to track all of those. I could by telling Google that. They're not going to be making the assumptions. We're telling them we're giving them the inputs. So I think that's going to be really, really interesting to be able to go back into our reporting and be like, okay, well, these are all the keywords that we wanted to be tracking from YouTube back into Google. Are we off? Are we doing this correctly type of thing? And then I assume eventually at some point Google will open it up. Maybe, I don't know. So then it'll be kind of interesting just to see what the discrepancies between the two will be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize. I think I used the word incrementality incorrectly there. The incrementality was related to the
testing
budgeting, which I found this part to be a little bit confusing. And then Kirk had stepped in with a question about an incrementality vendor. And then was this the time that they got into like just a lot of statistics, which I again found like super fascinating, that they're changing sort of some of the methodology behind the experiment. So there was a lot there that makes a lot of people excited and me a little sort of confused, other than when I used to tell a client, if you spend X amount more I would actually use the campaign performance tab that's already in there that would bring in all those factors. So we already have access to that, right? If you haven't used it, it's a cool feature. And I actually found Google's campaign performance predictions saying, this is the amount of money I want to put in for this length of time, and this is the ROAS, and then it would use my historical data to project out, how I could get to that point. When I did that with a good old-fashioned spreadsheet, I would normally get close to the same predictions that Google would put. So I'd be curious a little bit if this is a build out on something like that.
So from my understanding of the incrementality testing is that originally you had to have 100,000. Again, don't quote me on this one because I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was 100,000, or at least that's what my notes have right now. And I don't know if I misheard that, but it's now being dropped to $5,000, which is why so many people like Kirk and Andrew were so excited because they're like, now we can actually utilize this for clients and stuff like that. The one thing to note about the incremental testing, geez Louise, I can't say anything, is that it's per test. It's not a monthly budget. It's not per campaign, or it's per test essentially. So you're going to be able to have the incrementally testing features or the ability through drafts and experiments. And then you kind of just set them up, and you have to have that 5K as a separate budget outside of whatever you're currently doing to test. So yeah, that's going to be pretty nifty. We don't do a lot of incrementally tests, to be entirely honest. So I'm kind of really interested in seeing how my team's going to utilize it, or how it's going to make sense for our clients. I don't know if it's something that we're going to utilize a lot, but this is something that is going to be really, really cool for people who are dealing with bigger budgets who can do those incremental tests.
Yeah. And again, this may be where, I could be messing up tools and then terminology here for sure. So when I worked, again, household name brands, it was every couple of months they'd come to us and say, we just got $50,000 more. What would happen if we put it here? And then we would be charged with essentially doing those projections for them. So, I really think that these types of things, lowering the bar there, much, much more useful. Again, I would want to look at the definition of what they meant, because I wasn't running it as an experiment, but rather I was running a lot of mine through Performance Planner and then by hand in the Google Ads interface. Whenever I hear drop the experiment or the amount, I also think back to those brand lift tests that we actually would run through YouTube, right? So we run a lift test, and those did have, I believe, $1, I can't remember, whatever it was, you had to spend enough that it was statistically significant over that period. I want to, let's just pretend it was $10,000 in YouTube over 10 days or something, but I feel like it was even more than that.
Possibly.
Yeah.
You worked for a pretty large
Yeah.
company. I feel like it probably was bigger.
Money's money. It's like water at that point, you guys.
Yeah, basically. And then the last thing that they brought up, and this is the one that I have the least amount of notes on, so just bear with me, but it's called confidential matching for first-party data. I really wanted to ask more questions about this. I just never really got a chance to. There was, I think, 200 of us on the phone call, so getting our questions answered was a little bit harder to do, but basically confidential matching is a privacy-centric method to securely connect first-party data for measurement and audience solutions. So the key features in here is that it uses something called trusted execution environment, TEE, to process advertiser data privately. It allows marketers to securely connect to their first-party data. It provides verifiable proof that data is being used as intended. And then it also guarantees that others won't learn new customer information. So what's currently coming, or what currently is available to us, is Customer Match, but it's soon to be launched for Google Tag Gateway, enhanced conversions, and user-provided data in Google Analytics. The purpose is to enable marketers to use their data more securely, protect customer privacy, but then also allow more precise targeting and measurement without compromising data security.
So I felt like you just read your notes there.
I literally just read my notes. I was like, this is the one that I don't know off the top of my head. So I'm like, just read everything that you have on your screen.
Shockingly, I know a decent amount of this for a weird reason. Yeah. I am married to a information security professional. And back when Google released this, and it was actually probably 6 months to a year ago, I read the blog article in excruciatingly long amount of detail and asked him a lot of questions. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm better at explaining it, but it really
You probably are. I literally read off my notes.
It really has to do with, and this is how I guess how I read it. So a long time ago, when a lot of this started coming out, they put together sort of a think tank group of lots of companies. And it really has to do with this whole thing, which you're going to die when I say it, because I know you studied it, like the depreciation of the cookie situation,
Oh
right?
gosh.
And so it really goes back to that very thing. And this, I'll be curious how they sort of articulate this, but, you can read sort of how the cookie works, right? So like the cookie, it's sort of like, I walk into Best Buy, right? I think this is the analogy that they explain, and like cameras are on me, right? While I'm in Best Buy, that's a Best Buy cookie. But then if I leave Best Buy and I go into the parking lot and I go to Walmart, and those cameras are following me and everybody has access, it's a first party versus third party cookie. First party, only the ones Best Buy, versus this sort of takes that data, right? That first party data, and it protects it. And it potentially adds a third layer, like to processing this, that's in a secured environment. So to you and I, it would be very much something we wouldn't realize what is happening. But when it comes to an information security person like my husband, when they go into the site architecture of websites and data, they're essentially programming this differently so that a data layer is processed maybe potentially through like a third party or something that's like a vaulted area, like a lockbox. And then for the cookie to be accessed, they have to have a special key. So very, very heavy technology and processing stuff on their end. But think about it as like a lockbox for information that isn't as shared. It's sort of how it was explained to me, but I am literally just a marketer that has like an average IQ versus like, the slightly above average. I'm smarter. I mean, I'm the wife, he's the husband. But
You're incredibly smart.
anyway,
Okay.
long story short, this will always, I think, whether it be the cookies, I think this always has to come up in any GML because it is privacy related, it is always going to be top of mind. And Google has to have a solution for this because Google has a lot of information on us. And I don't know why it didn't, I should have said this back at the stats thing, but it kind of ties all the way back into the beginning. And this security thing is they made a point also in their data of saying logged in users. I don't know if you remember them saying that when they were talking about searches. It was very, very like, and the reason that's important is if they're logged in through their Google, right? So if I'm logged in and I'm searching, they have different information than if I'm not logged into my Google account. So
It's just being able to track it back to somebody,
exactly.
like anything else, like a retailer who's counting how many times you've been in their shop and stuff like that. Same thing here,
or
right?
they've gotten me to download the app, and so now I'm totally sharing everything. Right, 100%.
Yeah.
I think
Coupon usage, membership cards, the whole gambit, it's the same thing,
all
same
of it.
concept.
All of it. So
But
I
yeah,
guess,
those are kind of the announcements. Oh, sorry.
no, I was just going to ask, but you said that. I was like,
Yeah.
do you want to sum it up with like just sort of a wrap
Yeah,
up of like what will we hear? Like what's
the
the AI?
announcements are going to focus on AI. Obviously, that's going to be a big one. AI improvements across search, YouTube, and then measurement as well is where just based off of the debrief that we got, I think that's where they're going to go. I don't think we're going to hear very much else about like display or shopping in that regard. I think search and YouTube are going to be the big ones, and then measurement. Obviously, the message is always going to be I think it's going to always echo the same, where it's just more trying to give marketers more so we can do our jobs better, improve our performance, improve the insights that we're being able to glean from the data. So right now, I mean, with Performance Max enhancements, I'm pretty happy. So I'm excited to see what else that they have possibly for us on that front. But yeah, that's basically, that's the debrief that we got from Google for GML, and now you all have it. So yeah, happy GML day. I'm very excited.
Happy GML day. It's a Super Bowl of paid search.
It really is. But yeah, if you have any questions or concerns, leave them in the comments and we'll try to answer them as best as we possibly can.